This is the blueprint to making six figures plus on e-commerce, and I'm going to take you through each of the different levels in order for you to make this year, 2024, the year that you finally make a change. We're almost in February, and just like that, the first month has flown by, and I know for the majority of people, they've already given up on their New Year's resolution and they're falling back into old habits and giving up on those almighty dreams that they wanted to achieve. So this is your reason to discard all excuses and to follow a blueprint that is going to show you the way to making significant change in your life. As we go through, if you're like, man, that was a really good point, but I have more questions about it, one, I have a course down in the description that is completely free that covers every single step in more detail for you. So go there, see if it answers your question. And then two, if I don't answer the question there, I have my Discord down below, which you can join, message me, ask questions, and myself or someone else will come in, help you out and give a response. So getting straight into it, level one that we're starting with is your business fundamentals, okay? So first is, what are we talking about when I'm saying six figures a year, okay? And I want to clarify on this because firstly, I'm talking about the amount of sales that you're doing. So we're doing $100,000 in sales or more each year. Why this is important is because I'm not talking about profit, which realistically to me is the most important thing. For me, when you're talking about the amount of sales you're doing per year or per month, it's just a vanity metric that a lot of people use in order to get you to buy their course. And as you'll see at the end, I'm gonna talk about and teach you about what I prefer to do, which is building a business up. Instead of taking a salary, we're aiming to sell. But for the point of this video, I'm going to go through both options for you. But just so you know, we're talking about six figures per year or $100,000 in sales each year. Now, the second point that I wanted to point out to you is whenever I am looking for a new brand or I have a goal like $100,000 a year, I always want to reverse engineer it so I can break it down into more chewable steps and see what it is that I have to do. So $100,000 a year, we can break that down to $8,333 per month, which then gets broken down to $277 per day that we need to do in sales, okay? And if we have a product, which I always encourage to do, which is $30 or more in price, then we only need to sell about 9.2 products each day, okay? So that seems a lot more achievable. We've just got to find a product that's $30 or more, and we need to sell about 9 of them each day for a year, and we're gonna be able to hit our goal. Which ties in very easily to my third point here in the business fundamentals, which is we don't want to diversify, okay? I know a lot of people just heard that and they're like, man, only like 9 sales each day, I'll just do 9 different products and I'll get 1 sale in each, and that's how I'm gonna do it. For this, that is the quickest way to fail and for you to end up giving up, all right? We want to focus on one brand and pretty much one product and go really deep on it. For an example, this is a product that I've spoken about on my channel before. It was a product that I launched in the past that failed and didn't do very well for me, but it was a baby sleeping bag. Now, if I was teaching you and this was the example, and let's say it was the product that did well, you would go deep on that baby sleeping bag and maybe you would launch it, and then maybe you'd launch a couple of other sizes with it, maybe a couple of other patterns, and then maybe a couple of other, it's called the tog, but how thick it is, okay? I wouldn't encourage you to go into maybe then diapers or baby bottles or baby beds or anything, okay? That's diversifying the product as opposed to diversifying the different parts of the product that you've already got the audience for, okay? So until we get to $100,000 a year, we want to go deep instead of going wide on the brand. And then the last point that we're going to cover in the business fundamentals before we start getting into some strategies on how to find your products is the curve of entrepreneurship, okay? And meaning that you're probably just going to have to stick it out. Now, I learned this good example from Alex Hormozi, where he talks about the different stages that every entrepreneur is going to go through when they're starting a new business. Now, when we get in there, we see this great idea you've obviously thought about, Amazon FBA, and especially in Australia, and you're like, man, this is this fantastic idea, and we're starting off at uninformed optimism, okay? So we don't really know what's involved, but we're super excited, and we're going up we're so excited and we're going through, we're learning, we're gonna launch our first product, and then suddenly we hit informed pessimism, okay? So you go through and suddenly you learn, man, I'm gonna have to put in a good amount of hours to find a product because this doesn't work and it's not good for this reason. And man, I'm going through all these things and there's so much more than I thought at first, and it's so much harder. And that guy that wanted to sell me a course told me it was going to be so easy. And they keep going through this until they hit the valley of despair. And maybe some of you have been here before, where you go through and maybe you've been trying to launch these products and you realize, man, it's so expensive to get it sourced and I'm going to have to do it like this. Or maybe I launched one and it completely failed and it's just horrible and this whole thing doesn't work. And this is when it's at its absolute hardest, and most people quit because they get to here and then they see over there this other shiny object where the grass is greener and maybe it's drop shipping and they're like, oh, look, that looks so easy. I'm going to go over there. And they repeat the exact same cycle. They go over and then their uninformed optimism over there and they go through and it gets harder. Whereas as you can see, from the valley of despair, we then go into informed optimism, okay? And that is when you start to see the results. So when it's at the hardest, you're learning the most on what you shouldn't do, and then you start to fix your mistakes. You start to get some wins and you start to gain some momentum, and you have this informed optimism. You're like, okay, maybe I actually need to look at these type of products. I want to ship it with these type of 3PLs. And then eventually you move into that achievement, and that's when things all start to fall together and it starts to make sense. So a lot of the time it's not about who's best at it or who has the most natural talent. It's about who can stick with it the most and outlast everyone else that is just going to give up. Now, stage 2 that we're going to go into is the product research, and we're going to go through a couple of different strategies on how to find winning products. But something I want you to keep in mind is we're going to go through this little example here, and I want you to think about you as someone who was selling hot dogs, okay? And what would you do in order to sell the most amount of hot dogs? What could you do? Now, some of you might say, I'm going to make the absolute best hot dogs ever. They're going to taste the best, they're going to be the biggest size for the lowest price, and that's how I'm going to do it. And some of you might say, I'm going to spend the most amount of money on marketing campaigns. I'm going to have billboards everywhere, and I'm going to be on every TV commercial, okay? And both of them are really good ideas, but the best way to sell the most amount of hot dogs is to be in front of a starving crowd. If you have a hot dog stand, maybe outside of a university, right? And everyone's just had a huge day studying and hasn't had time to eat, and the mass is coming out and they're super hungry, you could have some of the worst hot dogs at a really expensive price, but people are going to buy them because they're starving. So the same concept applies to e-commerce, to our Amazon FBA. If you can find an area where there are lots of people wanting to buy, but not lots of competition and not people doing very well, then your product is going to win even if it's not the best product there. So how do we find these starving crowds? Now, there's a number of tools on ZonGuru that you can use that I have other trainings on, like the niche finder, which if you want to use ZonGuru, we have the best discount that you can get on the internet down in the link in the description. But outside of using these research tools that anyone can use, a good place I like to start is the US market. So we're wanting to sell on the Australian market, which is still developing, and there's still a lot of people who don't realize the potential of it. So we can go across into the American marketplace and look at some niches that are doing really big sales, have really big volume, and then come across and look at the Australian market and see, okay, are people on here already with lots of reviews? Is there a lot of competition, or is it still untapped and I can get in now and get the prime real estate, build my foundation of a spot up, get some reviews, and then as the traffic starts to come, Amazon Australia grows, there you are in the spotlight. There's a starving crowd with no one else to compete with. If you've gone through those steps and you're like, okay, maybe I've got 1 or 2 ideas, but I still want to build my list out, go down. I have a great free resource below. You'll see it here. And you're going to go through and you're going to start looking at the things around you in your everyday life. Okay, I want you to list out 10 things you see when you go to your gym. Maybe 10 things you see in your bedroom right now. 10 things you see when you go to work, and you'll see there's a heap of different ones there. Now you might think like, oh, these aren't great ideas, but what I want you to do is to use those, look them up on Amazon, and then you're gonna go across to the left and you're gonna see all the different categories that are attached to it. So let's say for me, I play a lot of volleyball. I type in volleyballs, and then I'll go in and I'll see on the left that there's something like volleyball equipment, or maybe then there's volleyball training gear. So I go in there, I find a different product that looks interesting, I click on that, maybe I save it, but then I see what other products are tied to this. And as you see, you go down a rabbit hole for each of those items you listed that are around you, and soon you can build out your list from those 10 or 20 items into nearly 100. And now once you've started to get a list of these ideas and you're looking into wanting to launch a couple of them, the main thing you need to think about before you go into sourcing is, how can I differentiate this product? Okay? Because there's going to be some people selling it, most likely already, and we need to think of a way that we can change the product to make it stand out and make the customer pick yours over the others no matter what. Now, this might be something that is visually different, but the best way to do it is to make it functionally different in a way that makes the product better for the customer to use. So for example, maybe it's adding a handle to a product, or maybe it's fixing a flaw in your competitors' products that all the customers hate about it. Okay, so it has to be a reason that when the customer looks at your product compared to the other ones, they choose yours every single time. And be ruthless with this part, okay? Don't trust your own opinion. If you look at it and you're like, yeah, mine's great, all right, it stands out, you're not the target market, okay? And you can, yes, ask friends and family, but again, a lot of the time, they're not the target market and their opinions are gonna be swayed. So use a service like PickFu, where you spend a little bit of money, but you get instant feedback and you can target it to your exact target market. And some people are like, yeah, I don't wanna spend that money there though. But you can literally spend this money to figure out, will your customer buy it? And if they say yes, and it shows that yours is the top result, then you know straight away, I can launch this and I'm going to dominate. Now, the third stage in getting to the $100,000 a month with our product is obviously having to source it. Okay, now there's a couple of different ways you can go about this. The most simple and the most common is to use a site like Alibaba, where you can go on there, you can search for the product you want to source, and you can reach out to different suppliers, negotiate with them, order samples, and then if you like it, if you're happy with it, you can then negotiate price and move ahead with an order. So you can reach out to them individually, or the way that I personally like to do it is through what's called an RFQ, or a request for quotation. This means you put up a post saying, hey, we're looking for volleyballs, right? To continue with the example, we're looking for volleyballs. We want them to be ultra spongy and we're looking for 500 of them. Can you please provide quotes and reach out to us? So you'll then post this up on Alibaba and it goes on their page. Then all the volleyball suppliers will be able to see it and send you a message, reach out to you and apply to work with you. Okay, so it saves a heap of your time, a heap of your effort. They'll all come to you and then you can engage in negotiations and order samples and move forward and etc. A different way from using Alibaba is you can go to a site like Fiverr or Upwork and hire a sourcing agent. Now this is someone in the country that you want to source, so maybe China, India, America, and they go to the factories themselves. They know where different ones are and they will go and source and find out the prices of the product for you. And then they can arrange samples, order samples, and look at them there in the country and send you photos and videos. So you save a heap of money on the shipping costs for samples because they're usually extremely expensive. So it just gets shipped in the country. So you save a heap of money there and you get much quicker feedback on having to do it. But of course, you then have that additional cost of hiring someone under you. And then of course, lastly, you can go to China yourself. I've had a couple of my students go to China and go through the markets and the Canton Fair and discuss with suppliers face to face and get samples to bring back. It is a great way to learn and it's a great experience. You get to see so many different product ideas, but of course, it's a lot more expensive. You have to pay to go to China, pay accommodation and stay there, and you have to, of course, be in this foreign country for a lot of people like myself and maybe learn the language, but it is, in my opinion, the best way to source a product, but it is just the most expensive. Now, once you've figured out what product you want to go with, you've reached out to suppliers, you've sourced, you've sampled, you've agreed on it, you've done a contract, Now it's been made and you need to ship it. And there's really only two ways that you generally go about this. Firstly is you can organize with your supplier to ship the product. This of course is going to depend on how big it is, how heavy it is, how many you're shipping. But a lot of the times you can either do it via air, which is very, very quick, but very, very expensive, or two, via sea, which is much, much cheaper, but can take quite a bit longer, especially with, at the moment in Australia, there's strikes at the ports, so it's taking a long, long time to get anything in. So you can organize with your supplier, but keep in mind, your supplier is not a shipping expert, okay? So whilst they might say to you like, yes, we can get it there for this much, much cheaper price, but maybe they're just getting their auntie's friend's grandma's grandson to come and pick it up on his bike. They throw it on the back and he's pedaling down to the port and it falls off twice and things get crushed and marked and you don't really know what's going to happen, okay? So make sure you have that conversation with your supplier and it's a decision that you have to make based on the relationship that you feel you have. Or you can then go into the second option, which is using a 3PL service, which stands for third-party logistics company. Now, these are people who specialize in shipments and handling your goods. I personally do like to go with a 3PL as they're going to handle everything from picking it up from the supplier to making sure that it's checked in correctly at Amazon. And I know absolutely that if anything goes wrong, they're going to handle it. So it's just that peace of mind. Of course, you then have to pay them in order to be that middleman. So it adds a little bit of cost to your overall cost of goods, but it's worth just doing the numbers and seeing which one you prefer. Two companies that I can recommend to you to reach out are Lucky Lucky and Worldcraft Logistics. I only recommend these because I've used them personally myself, but of course do your own research on what other companies you might be able to try. Now, level 4, I think we're up to, which is selling your product. It finally arrives, you've shipped it, it's there, and now you have to sell it, okay? And now the first thing that we want to do is absolutely dominate the listing game, okay? Now, ZonGuru has an amazing tool for this, for the Australian market, which is the Listing Optimizer. You can go in there, it has an AI feature, you use it, and it will build out a listing for you. Don't use that listing as your end one, okay? It's just a blueprint. It comes up and you then want to go in there and add your keywords in extra bit by extra bit, and you're going to build up a super strong listing that's going to be better than all your competition that are already on there, because they're usually really, really lazy, and it just means that organically you're going to rank higher from the start and not have to claw your way up as much of the mountain to get to the top of the page. Now, of course, you're gonna have to get some images done and write out these bullet points for your listing as well. And all of this is built around your customer avatar, okay? So you need to think about who is gonna be buying my product. What do they look like? So what age are they? What gender are they? Are they married? Do they have kids? How much money do they make? Do they have heaps of free money? Whereabouts do they live? All of these things you want to think about, because that's what you want to base your photos around, okay? You want the people in your photos, the words used in your photos, in your listing, to look like this person, to be what this person talks about, how they talk about things, the things they talk about, okay? So have these already worked out, written down. So then if you're working with a photographer or maybe a graphic designer who's mocking up some photos for you, you just hand them this list of the product avatar and they build it all out for you. And then of course, once you have a listing, your stock's there, you want to start advertising it with PPC. Now, PPC stands for pay per click, and it's Amazon's in-program advertising platform. And this goes from beginner to very advanced, okay? Now I have a more in-depth guide on my channel and in the free course, but you basically just want to start with a couple of campaigns, which I'll link a video down below on how to set these up to get started. I'll have for you some screen recordings, and you'll just have to go in and apply it for your own product. If I showed it here in this video, it's going to make this video 2 hours long. So get your PPC set up, turn them on so you get shown, you start making sales, and then we want to start building our reviews. So your reviews are the lifeblood of your product, okay? People trust other people when they're writing their reviews and whether the product is good before they decide to buy themselves, okay? So when just starting out, get some friends and family to buy it, okay? Be careful because Amazon can be smart and can see if you've used similar Wi-Fi on similar devices. Sometimes they won't let you use the review, let your family or friends write a review. So just be careful around that. And then if you end up launching in the US, not the Australian market, but in America, they have the Vine program as well. So you can pay to get your initial first 10 reviews. It's not here in Australia yet, unfortunately, but it is coming. And then of course, I always encourage having an insert or having a QR code on your packaging that has a link to something like a ManyChat flow, which I'll have a video linked down below that has my ManyChat flow that I use to boost the amount of reviews that I get. Of course, if I go through that, it's gonna take ages to do this video, but I have everything worked out for you. It just encourages people to leave an honest review, and it helps to boost your listing so there's more social proof and more people want to trust to buy. Then once you've started to run your PPC, you're boosting your reviews, you're starting to make some sales, you then have the option of advertising off of Amazon, okay? So you can go to some influencers on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok. You already have your customer avatar, so you know what kind of influencers you wanna look for, okay? Look for the people that your customer avatar watch, and you can reach out to them, say, hey, we'll give you some free products if you can provide an honest review. Some of them you'll have to pay in order to do a review, but these always work really, really well if you can get in front of someone who has your customer avatar watching them all the time. You then of course also have the option to advertise on Facebook, do Facebook ads, do YouTube ads, do TikTok ads to push more additional traffic to your listing. Amazon does love it for your organic ranking when you push outside traffic to it, but it's incredibly important that you're making sales on Amazon first. You're making sales through your PPC organically, because if you can't get it to work there, it's not gonna work by advertising off of Amazon, okay? You're just gonna be spending more money hoping that I hope one of these other ads are gonna work, but it means there's a more deep-rooted problem that you need to fix, and you only move off of Amazon and advertise once your on-platform sales is working. Now, lastly, and what is most important to me, and this is a little bit controversial because I know a lot of people don't agree with it, but is how you're going to scale and reinvest, okay? Now, I know a lot of people hear about Amazon and the possibility of the money you can make, and you can be like, wow, all right, we're aiming to make this $8,300 each month. I would love to take a juicy check from that and put it in my pocket each month, okay? And the problem with that for me is that you are then stunting the growth of your business, okay? So let's say we're making that much money and from your profit, you're taking $2,000 each month away. That's $2,000 more that you could be putting into stock, you could be putting into advertising, you could be putting into influencers that is then growing your business more and more, okay? And if you're only taking that $2,000 each month, and that's only $24,000 extra you're making each year. Whereas if you put it in and you continue to have that growth and you're making more and more profit each month, when it then comes to the end of the year, you could instead exit the company for a much bigger check. Now, this is what I mean about selling, not salary, okay? So when you sell a company, a general guide to go by is that you get 2 to 3 times the amount of yearly profit that the company makes. And that's just a rough guide, okay? If you have multiple sales channels, so you have a Shopify store as well, maybe you have a big following for the brand on social media, that multiplier is only going to go up higher, okay? But for this example, we'll just use a 3 times multiplier. So if you get to the $100,000 a year, and let's say you're running at a 30% profit margin, which is what I encourage as a minimum, that means you're making $30,000 each year in profit, okay? And if you sell this brand for the 3 times multiplier, you can then sell it for a $90,000 check plus your inventory, okay? So you get bought out for that as well. So you could take a salary each month and only make $24,000, or you then build it up and sell the company for a minimum of $90,000, okay? So you see the difference there. It's just about having that mindset shift and playing the long game. If you hold it for longer and you build it bigger and bigger and bigger, you're going to have an even larger exit. So now the most important thing is that you take action, okay? You can't watch this video and then have a complete blueprint laid out for you, have a full course in detail for free there, and then not make any change, okay? If you just watch this and feel good and gooey inside and feel motivated, but then don't actually do anything, you're never going to achieve and fulfill that life that you want to have. Take action. Find a product, source it, ship it, launch it, and go live, okay? You're going to learn so much more from doing that than just continuing to watch YouTube videos, okay? Go and do it. Maybe the first one fails, but all of that stuff that you're going to learn, like the graph I showed you at the start, is gonna get you quicker from that valley of despair into the climb of achievement, the mountain of achievement, okay? It's about being able to outlast everyone else and seeing that end game, seeing that exit that you can get to and not quitting and continuing to get better and better and better until you make it work. So if you watch this and you get stuck or you're like, Lockie didn't explain it well enough, I wanna know more, there is a full free course in the description, okay? It is better than everyone else's paid course. I made it so that I can help as many people as possible. Enroll, do the course, launch a product. If you get stuck and you've watched the videos first, watch the videos first before you ask the question, come to the Discord and ask a question and we'll be more than happy to help. But good luck, legends. Make 2024 the year that you go out and achieve greatness and you start working towards the life that you want to have. And remember, you're only one product away from living the life of your dreams. Thank you guys so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.